on the recording. And thank you all for clicking whatever buttons Zoom is asking you to click. And I I hope that well, I remember a long time ago, I used to think like, oh, I needed a good meditation set. I need a good meditation. I need a good. And what I've come to learn is I hope that I get the meditation set that I need today. Yeah, I hope I get the set I need today. And with that, I will pass it over to the wonderful Carolina. Thank you, Carolina.
Thank you so much, Brian. It's always really a pleasure and a delight to be here in this beautiful group. I usually like to start with a little quote that I've has inspired me this morning. And this is, I may have read this before in this group. It's a Mark Nippo quote. It says, "It is so simple, life, and yet so hard, as listening without hope of reward, the way mountains listen to the sun." So I invite you to sit back and find wherever comfort is in the body, and bringing the attention to the sounds around you right now, gathering the attention, focusing right now in what is in the present moment, beginning today with the sounds. And if it's possible, listening without judgment, just simply allowing this moment to be just as it is. Noticing the sensations in the body, noticing the sit bones on the chair or the cushion or the floor, wherever you happen to be sitting. Or if you're laying down, noticing the contact of the body with whatever surface it's touching. Noticing the feet on the floor, or the cushion. Noticing in particular the sensations of the soles of your feet. In contact with the floor, and noticing sensations of perhaps warmth or coolness or neutral. Gathering the attention of being here present, physically grounded, of where you are right now. The invitation for mindfulness in this moment is intentionally paying attention, gathering your attention from wherever the attention has gone, wherever the attention has been distracted to thoughts and feelings. And gathering that attention back to just this present moment. Intentional attention. Allowing this moment to be just as it is. And bringing a sense of compassion, if it's possible, a sense of compassion of what it feels like to be human, to feel the aliveness in the body right now. Just as it is. And bringing now the attention to the breath, to the sensations of the breath, the rhythm of the breath in the body. And bringing a sense of loving awareness to this moment. Noticing the in-breath in and the out-breath out. Recognizing that in this moment, we're connected in this group, in this H.O.P.E group, where we come for healing in the present moment. And in this moment, we're all breathing together, supporting each other, one another with this practice. And bringing the attention now to any part of the body where there is a sense of perhaps tension or pain. And bringing a sense of softening, if it's possible, softening to the heart that may be hurting, softening to any part of the body that needs special attention. And softening and compassion towards the mind, especially when the mind is triggered, when the emotions are triggered, and when pain feels intensified. Almost like bringing a sense of a hug, an embrace towards the mind and the heart and all the emotions felt throughout the body. And gathering our attention back to the breath. How amazing that we have the breath as a center and a source of healing, a source of attention, a source of compassion. And as we come to the end of the sit, I like to finish with the self-compassion touch. Bringing the right hand over the left hand side, over your chest, your heart, over your heart. And feeling that soothing touch of your hand over your heart. As a reminder to the body that we can calm the nervous system and bring a sense of caring and loving kindness to this moment. May you find the breath a soothing source of calm and loving awareness. And may the merit of our meditation this morning go towards all beings suffering, all sentient beings suffering, to each and every one of you here. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and take your time in your own time. Thank you for your practice.
Thank you so much, Carolina.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'll have
Bye,
to say
everyone.
goodbye now.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Sending
Yes.
you lots of love. Safe
Thank you
travels.
so much. Be well, everyone.
Okay. See you soon.
See you soon. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Okie dokie. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back and welcome to those who joined mid-sit. I'm still Brian. That is still Liz. We're so glad we're all here together. Welcome for our weekly InsightLA Mindfulness and Deep Suffering Practice Group. We're a practice group. We're an affinity group. We like to call this the H.O.P.E group. And HOPE stands for healing ourselves through the present experience. Mindfulness. So glad we're all here together. And we're coming up on our, Liz, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, we're coming up on our 3-year anniversary of having this group in a few weeks in early April. So that's really exciting. And this is the first time we've ever had this topic, which is a really important topic. And I'm so glad that you're here, Liz, to talk about it. So today we're going to be talking, or Liz will be talking, and about friendship and grief. Such an important topic to me. All the people we care about. Friendship. The love between friends is so, I mean, for me, it's been a lifesaver, literally. And when our friends are gone physically and they're no longer here, but they still live in our heart, and how can we, well, like all types of grief, it is so confusing and disorienting and scary. And thank goodness that the people that we love, like our friends and best friends, we don't have to move on. We absolutely do not have to move on. But how do we move forward and bringing the people that we love with us? So I'm so glad. Thank you, Liz, for being here, and also talking about this wonderful man. And I've heard a little bit about him, Bill. And so talking about friendship and best friendship and grief. Oh, but who is this person? Who is this Liz? Who is she? Well, let me tell you who she is. Liz, I'm so glad to know you, Liz. Liz was one of the first people I met at Our House Grief Counseling Center here in Los Angeles, which is a wonderful organization that helps grieving Angelinos, adults and kids. And Liz, you've been there for about 6 years now, I believe. So 6 years of Liz has been in the front lines and sitting with people who are grieving, and which is to say, people who are loving, sitting in circles of love and loss and pain. And so Liz is really is an amazing grief expert. I believe that you become an expert when you spend time with, not just reading books. I know, Liz, you've read plenty of books, but Liz has more than just the knowledge. I know that knowledge is really converted into wisdom through action. And Liz, you have knowledge, you have wisdom, you have life experience, and you have your own love that you bring to not only working in the in grief circles, as a therapist, and as a person. Liz, you're also a person. And and thank you for being here to talk about grief, friendship, your friendship with this amazing man, Bill. And just so glad you're here, Liz. Thanks so much. Yeah. And over to you, my friend. And we have until the top of the hour. So we can, and again, as I said before, no mistakes here. So it's all good. But thank you so much for being here. Really, yeah. Thank you, Liz.
Thanks for having me. So yeah, I am not actually a therapist yet, Brian.
Yet.
Yet. I am finalizing my master's right now. Don't mislabel it if you can.
You are, in my mind and my heart, Liz, you are a therapist.
Okay. Don't tell the licensing board that though.
Yeah, we won't tell them that.
So hi guys. So yeah, I have a long history with grief. It has been 8,421 days since my brother died. And it has been 105 days since my best friend died. So I have a long history of dealing with grief, both professionally and personally. I have run grief groups with our house for the past 6 years. I serve on their associate board, 2 subcommittees on the board, very involved. And yeah, so I'm very familiar with the term grief, and just all the things surrounding it. I've learned a lot over the past 23 years. I was 17 when my brother died, so I was sort of a child. But sort of that has set me up for where I am today, experiencing the grief of a very dear friend of mine who was like a brother, and in very many ways knew me better than my brother ever could, because he knew me as an adult, fully functional human, a 17-year-old little kid, you know? And what I've learned about grief is that one of my grief group members said this once, and I wrote it down like quietly after group because, you know, I couldn't take notes during group. The grief is like a country you've always heard of, but until you have actually visited that country, you have no idea what it's like. It's like a club you never wanted to be a part of, and now you're a part of it. And membership, the price sucks. It's a high price to pay to get into it. And, you know, Brian and I bonded over our own experiences with those around us with death, and then leading these groups. It's lonely to grieve. It's lonely to feel like this is the way I have to go on for the rest of my life without this person, my person. And everybody grieves in their own way, right? Everyone experiences it differently. And the banging is my cat. I can't get him. He's going to keep playing the drums. Sorry. And then also one of the biggest things I learned is society shrinks away from it, right? It's too big. It's too scary. I remember very early on my mom saying this and being angry about it. And there was a lot of anger surrounding, you know, not being able to have people serve witness and be witness to this raw, visceral pain. And that's what these grief groups provide, is a place to put it and a place to share it, where they're not going to give you a platitude via at least the silver lining, the bullshit that people try to tell you. At least you had them for that long. At least they didn't suffer. At least they died doing something they loved. If anyone says at least to you, you have full permission to just punch them in the throat. Like, that's never okay, right? Like, it's okay to suffer. People want to make it easier on themselves so they can witness it. So they will tell you these things. And that's in all sorts of grief. Another thing I learned very early on from a gentleman who was my boss for like 9 years at a restaurant when I was a teenager into adult life, who actually died almost a year ago. So another unfortunate experience with grief, but he had not lost, she didn't go anywhere, she didn't lose. His daughter died. So he was around the same time when my brother died, and he was my safety net. He was my grief group. He was the person who witnessed it, good, bad, and different. He told me, you have a choice. You can get through this, you can choose to go on, or you can choose to die. He didn't mean literally. I can let my soul, my spirit, all of it die. And he was like, you have a choice to make right now. You can be angry, and you're going to be angry, but you're going to need to figure out how to fucking get through it. And it was like, oh, okay, I get that. Thank you. And he also told me something that has really resonated with me for 23 years. Don't compare grief. There's no comparison. Like, the death of a child is the magnitude of that I can't understand. I don't have children, but don't compare the death of a child to the death of a close cousin, the death of a friend. There's no comparing it. If it's your grief, it's your grief. Don't allow anyone to tell you that it's not the same. Own it, be with it. Don't ever do that. And that was really important for me in my own experience now as a grieving friend and then as a grieving sibling, to understand that I could have what I needed in my grief and like be with it and sit with it and not feel like, oh, at least it wasn't a kid, it wasn't my child, right? So I'm very fortunate to have that as sort of, not fortunate, I mean, I would prefer not to have it, but I have this building block now as a 40-year-old woman to experience the death of a friend. I was sitting here in this chair at this pink desk that you can't see that's pink because you're on it, when I got a text from our mutual good friend, Burke, who had been friends with Bill since childhood. Can I give you a call? That's weird. We've never spoken on the phone. And he called me, and I thought he was going to tell me Bill's dog died, because Bill's dog is a big part of Bill. And I thought maybe he just can't call me because he's just too upset. No, I'm so sorry, Liz. I have to tell you this. Bill died today. And, you know, the floor dropped out from underneath me. I was like, you're fucking kidding, right? There's no way that that's true. How? You know, freak snowboarding accident. This man has snowboarded for his entire adult life. He's been all over the world, right? You know, how could this happen? So Bill and I met 9 years ago through a mutual friend who is one of my closest friends from back east in New Jersey. She introduced us, and immediately it was like, oh, this is the homie, right? Like, you just click, you just have, as the youngins say, you have a vibe, right? It was just like immediately this comfort, this person. You know, the first time we hung out, he took me to Mulholland Drive to just drive Mulholland because we're both race car dorks, right? And it was like we spent 9 hours together the first day we hung out. Like, who does that? And from then on, we were inseparable. You know, we fought like siblings. You know, he was just this kind, genuine, authentic human. And because I had experienced death and loss and grief, I, in friendships, have learned to be very validating and needing that back. Because after someone dies, the people in your life that matter, that fucking matter, you want to make sure they know it, because you have experienced not being able to tell someone one more time, right? So he and I had a very communicative friendship in that, hey, Liz, I love you, out of nowhere, just a text to tell me that. I remember one morning I was hungover, and I jokingly wrote on my Instagram thing that I wish the cats would bring me coffee, because we all know they can't, or won't, I don't know. And 30 minutes later, a coffee showed up at my door. He ordered me coffee. You know, that's the kind of human that he was. He sent birthday cards, he sent Christmas cards, he sent gifts. And not to gender shame, but y'all don't do that. You know, it's not very common to find a guy in your life who's not a romantic partner who shows up in those ways. He texts me every year on anniversary of my brother's death and on my brother's birthday. He just remembered the little things, and he was this to so many people. We have one of his very close friends from high school started a WhatsApp chat. There's 117 people. I don't know 117 people to have a WhatsApp chat if I die that have expressed the same thing about how he showed up, and that he knew like just how to be present, and how to love, and how to just be a good friend. He showed me what it means to care for someone, and the magnitude of not having that is hitting this 105 days later. Today is his 45th birthday. He's not celebrating his 45th birthday. Instead, we're talking about him being dead, right? One of his very good friends also, and I can share this with you, Brian, if you'd like, wrote a memoriam to him and posted it today. And it's so eloquent and so lovely. I'm not a writer. She's clearly a writer. And just speaks about this just magnanimous human. You know, everyone talks about how good their human was when they died. I have been making sure to remember him as a whole person. He was stubborn. He would name drop, which drove me bonkers. He was real big in the snowboarding and skate world. Like, not that he was a big name at all. He was not. He was very good at both things. He was also like a mountain biker, very outdoorsy. He would be like, oh, I ran into yada yada at the bar the other day. And I'm like, I don't know who that is. You don't know who that is? I'm like, I'm not a 17-year-old boy. So like that was the thing that always bothered me about him. And he knew it, you know, and he always had to be right. And he usually was, which was the problem. Like, not in like a smug way. He just was like, no, I'm right about this. He would Google it to prove a point. And he'd be like, God damn it, Bill. You know, if I didn't text him right back, he'd, you know, send me, he's a stream of conscious texter. So it's not one large text, text, like 7 texts in a row. And you're like, what? And if I didn't text right back because, oh, I'm working, I'm in grad school, I'm sleeping, he would thumbs up his last text and say, good talk, which is disgusting and snarky and annoying and like kind of childish. But it turns out he did this to everybody. So it was like, oh, it wasn't just like he was annoyed at me because I'm the best friend and he thinks I should be available at all times, right? But yeah, like, you know, what I've learned afterwards now is that I've connected with these people that he spoke to me about that I didn't know, that he was always like, oh, Liz, I want you to meet this person, this person. He connected. He brought people together. He was one of those. And again, like, I don't want to lift him up like this person because I think people do that in death, but he fucking was. And it's like unbelievable. Like, you know, as Billy Joel said, only the good die young, you know, truly, you know, he really was this person that, you know, people adored. You know, he showed up. And I think that's my lesson, is to keep showing up. Don't find the silver lining. That's not the silver lining. That's just the lesson. It's just like to show up, like, you know, to check in on my friends and continue to check in on my friends. Tell them I love them now. And, you know, make the effort. We're all very busy. LA is a huge city. And if you live on the east side, I never see you. But to make sure that I remember to live in this moment and like be in the here and now. And my dad always says, just be with it, be with whatever you're feeling. And like today, y'all showed up, good, bad, or indifferent. And I'm sorry that you're here, because it's because there's suffering, but there is suffering everywhere. And ironically, I don't know if you guys will be able to see this, but I have the word hope tattooed on my hand and the word kind tattooed on the other. And they're this way, so I can read them and remind myself to be kind and have hope. I'm also from a town in New Jersey called H.O.P.E. Yeah, Brian didn't know that. Fun facts. But just those gentle reminders the practice this morning was good for me to just sit and be present with, like, will I be able to talk and not cry today? And I'm doing it presently, but like afterwards, the come down, right, of the realization of why I'm here to speak to you folks sucks. It's really crummy, but I have such gratitude for having Bill Kamphausen in my life. He challenged me to do shit I never wanted to do, like mountain bike. I thought that was going to end our friendship. The last time I saw him, he was like, I think you'll like it, because I'm like kind of outdoorsy. And he got like a very expensive mountain bike from one of his girlfriends, was like, oh, like this will fit you. I'm short, very, very short. So he set me up on helmet, I had elbow pads, I got knee pads. He's like, make sure you wear Vans, they're comfortable to ride in. Cool. I did not realize what this meant. Uphill, it's in the mountains, actual mountain biking. And there's twigs and there's things, and I fell and there was a snake. And yeah, that was awful. And I stood up and I'm just like in my head, like, oh, this is awful and it's hot out. And we get to like a clearing and he's like, you good? And I was like, no, I'm not having any fun. And he turned around like, what? Because he loved mountain bike. Like that was his thing. His like most recent thing was this love and adoration of this like very expensive fancy bike, whatever. And he turns, he's like, are you kidding me? Well, you have to fucking try. And I was like, I do? I don't want to do this. You volunteered me for, I didn't want to come to this. And he was like, just a few more minutes. And I was like, no, I'm 20 minutes in. We had 20 minutes. We had gotten to this mountain. We had to jumpstart his van because the battery was dead. The whole thing. And I'm like, nah, I'm done. Let's go drink some beers. And he looked at me and didn't speak to me the whole ride back to the van. Like no words were exchanged. And then the van wouldn't start again. And I thought, oh, this is it. I'm going to have to Uber back to his house and then just get a flight home. And like, there was no word other than, can you see if someone has jumper cables? Like, I thought this was the end of our friendship. I legitimately was like, well, 9 years in, and that's how close we were, is that we could fight like that. Like, he legitimately didn't say words to me on the way back to his house. Like, he was like, done. He was so pissed because I didn't want to do his thing. But then, I changed out of my knee pads and all that jazz back into like normalcy. We went and got a beer and he was like, I'm just really disappointed that you don't like this as much as I do. And like, we walked through it, we talked through it, and it was fine, but like, those are the things, like you have to be able to fight with the people you love. If you just agree with them, you're just on the surface. Like, you've got to disagree. And we did a lot, I don't know. It's just talking about him like lights me up. And his roommate actually said to me at one point after he died, I just need to tell you that like, when he talked about you, Liz, the air in the room changed. Oh, hello, Kat. And it's that validation afterwards to know how much that mutual love and respect we had. And the fact that so many of his good friends that I never met knew who I was and knew how big this was going to be for me. I, on Instagram, Facebook, all the, I don't know these people, I don't have phone numbers. They found me and reached out to tell me, I know how close you and Bill were. And that was like, there's definitely some ego in that, of feeling acknowledged and understood. Parker, I'm gonna just adopt your cat, thank you. I also sit on the board of a kitten rescue. So that stuff is like, the afterwards is like, wanting people to know my brother and Bill. My brother's name is Simon, by the way. He was also great. But wanting people to know who your person was, to speak about them, to hear their name, because people will say, how did they die, right? They don't ask you how they lived. You don't get to have that. And I think that's very important. What this community of his friends in this group chat have really talked about. It's how he lived. And I hope that you guys can talk about your people and how they live, even if they sucked while they lived. It's the wishing, the missing, the what could I have, that you should be able to talk about. Like if your person died from addiction or suicide, and there's this stupid stigma that surrounds that, and that's not fair. That's not fair. You know, when people ask me how my brother died and it was an overdose, right? No. Cancer's okay, overdose not okay. You know? So, but my brother lived in a very short life, a great life. He was wonderful too. And that's what I want people to know. But he sucked as well. Like everybody does, a little bit. And I think that it's just so important to talk about them and to have a space to do that. And this space, you know, Brian has told me so much about it, is safe and good, and sort of like a nice little group hug, in not like a corny way, but like a place to like sit and just, oh, this is a place where people get it. I'm sorry that you get it. It sucks to get it. And eventually everyone's going to get it. Because if you're born, there's 100% chance you're going to die. Just keeps happening. Death in Texas, so they say. But yeah, I think for me, I'm appreciative of Brian asking me to do this. When he asked me and we were just going through dates because I'm a busy bee, I didn't even know in my like intellectual brain that today was Bill's birthday. And I was like, yeah, the 25th works. That's great. And then like 2-3 weeks ago, I was like, wait a minute. You know, that's actually Bill's birthday. Wow, that's crazy. And I don't think that there's no coincidences. Like things don't have to happen for a reason. This just kind of happened. I'm glad it did. It gives me the space to talk about him and talk about how his friendship has impacted my life and always will. Like the night that he died, no one knew what to do for me. Because what do? You send food, right? Like, oh, well, they're going to have to eat. That's the thing that keeps them going. My brother-in-law sent me a pizza. Thank you. And my sister was like, I'll get on the next flight. I had COVID. I said, get on the next flight. You can't come here. But that's how important he was, is people knew like, oh shit. And my dad was like, well, do you need to come home? I was like, no, I don't need to come home. Like, I don't know what I need. I need to lie on the floor with a bottle of wine and cry. And I did. I laid on the kitchen floor. I laid in the hallway. I laid on the living room floor and just sat with it and just visceral, raw, big sobbed. I screamed. I did all the things you don't think you can do as an adult. Like those things that you're like, how is this coming out of my body? You know, like those things where you're like, I didn't know I had this. I did not know I could experience something this large in my life. And I think that's also why grief is so lonely, because you can't imagine that other people have lived through this, have gotten through to the other side. And it's not really another side. It's more like it softens, it lessens, you get further from it. But then it hits you back with like, you see a fucking Hot Pocket in the grocery store, and somehow that reminds you of a time that you did this, that, or the other, and you have to leave the grocery store because you're going to sob. You know, those things. Those are the things that no one talks about. Right? Like, I think my favorite place to cry is car. There's windows, people can see me. Drive, put on some sad ass music, something, whatever it might be. For me, sometimes it's Old Dirty Bastard. Sorry, don't know why. You know, reminds me of a time in my life, right? Sometimes it's Dave Matthews Band, very similar aesthetics, right? But just to get in the car and just like release it and like let that be okay, and not shame yourself for not feeling better. I thought I was doing better. I thought I was past this. Nah, boo, you're not. You never will be. It's gonna hit you. It's gonna trick you into thinking you're okay, and then it's like punches to the face. You're not. And then in an hour, you're okay. And it's just gonna be like that. And no one tells you that. Society tells you the at least. And those things, the platitudes, the dumb shit that like doesn't help. It does not help. So learning to just not quiet it in the face of what is protecting others. Obviously, like if you're in a work setting, sure, maybe a little. There's some places where maybe it won't be as appropriate. But if you run into an old friend and they ask you how you're doing, not good is okay. If that makes them uncomfortable, that's not your person. That's not who needs to know. You'll find your tribe. Bill was the tribe. Like, he was who knew. He allowed me to just be who I was in every way, shape, in the word. Like, just, he saw me for me, and I saw him for him. And there was just so much love between us. One of the last texts I have from us was, I had posted something that said, tell your friends you love them, make it weird, right? And instead of commenting on that post, he sent me a text and said, I love you so much, Liz. And my response back was, we're such lucky morons. I love you too. And I have that to keep, right? I'm sure everyone has some voice notes and text from the people they love. Thank goodness for technology. But yeah, that's who Bill was,
Thank you, Liz.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Just gonna turn off the recording here.